welcome everyone to Worlds 101. Worlds 101 is what we're here to do tonight is we're here to demystify some of the logic games. For those of you who are new to your LSAT study or new to the Demon, what we do for logic games, the best way to do logic games for the vast majority of them is to do worlds. It's the most efficient. You're doing all the work up front and then answering the questions like that, which is just so much better. I used to, when I was a young tutor and I was a bit more of an asshole, I used to challenge my students to time themselves when they were starting their games. I was like, okay, you do what you're going to do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And about 60 seconds in, they would have written the rules. And then they're like, okay, I'm done with the setup. Awesome. And I'd be working for like 3-4 minutes. What ups? And they're like, what is he doing? After the 3 or 4 minutes, we'd restart the clock. And I'd be done with the questions in about 60 seconds. And about 5, 6, 8 minutes later, after testing all the answers, after drawing out new things for every single question, after rebuilding the wheel, I would have smoked them by like 5 minutes, okay? Now, I'm not rushing in that moment. I'm just doing it more efficiently. And I want to strongly suggest that this is about efficiency. I'm not going to be going fast at all through any of this. And I can still, not going fast, do an entire section of logic games and know that I got every single question correct in about 20 to 23 minutes, okay? Now, I'm not doing that as a humble brag. I'm doing that as if I can do that, so can you, okay? It just takes time. It takes time to get to that place. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to make worlds because they are the most efficient way of doing the logic games, okay? So what we're going to do tonight specifically is I'm going to do a demonstration with a relatively straightforward, easy game. I'm going to show how worlds are just for anyone who's like completely unfamiliar with what worlds are in the first place. I'm going to do it on a game and then show the practical application of that, okay? And so if Jen or Kevin, if you could drop the syllabus into the chat for tonight, we're going to take a look at this first game and I'm going to demo that. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to give people time on the second and third game to do what you just saw, make worlds, go through some of the questions if you got there. And then I'm going to do the worlds and go through the questions, sort of to build upon what we had already done. So throughout that journey, I want to strongly recommend ask questions. That's what we're here for. We are here to answer your questions specifically about logic games tonight, but about other things too. I strongly want to encourage you, get your money's worth. You're not paying it for tonight. So ask questions. You get like an awesome resource for free. And I just want to double down on, I just genuinely buy into that the LSAT Demon is the best free LSAT prep out there. We have just, we have 3 complete tests for you to try us before you buy us. And that is sometimes all people need. They see that and then they're like off to the races. So I also want to strongly recommend checking out the LSAT Demon Daily podcast and the Thinking LSAT podcast because they're great resources for across the board. So we're going to get started with test J game 1. And so if again, we could drop that into the chat, that'd be awesome. And I'm going to start us off. Okay. Here we go. So test J game 1 says a company employee generates a series of 5-digit product codes in accordance with the following rules. Okay. Then it says the codes use digits 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and no others. So my variables for this game are 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then it says each digit occurs exactly once in any code. Okay, great. So I have to, it's a 5-digit code. I have to use each one of them, right? Because they only occur once. Then it says the second digit has a value exactly twice that of the first digit. Now, if you're writing down rules, which I encourage you not to actually do, a lot of people are going to be like, okay, well, first digit equals second digit X. And you're like, what does that actually do for you? It's just making the rule even more abstract, and it doesn't actually help you solve it, okay? So I want to encourage you, get out of the habit of writing down rules. It doesn't actually help you, like the vast majority of the time. But we have the second digit has a value exactly twice that of the first digit, and then the value of the third digit is less than the value of the fifth digit. And so I think about this for a second. Who doesn't love math? Just by show of hands, right? We want to go to law school because we don't want to do math. I feel like that's a common trope. Well, we got to be able to do at least basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, right? What does the second digit has a value exactly twice that of the first digit? Well, that means either I have 1 and 2, double, or 2 and 4. And those are my worlds to start with. I'm getting rid of that rule by baking it in. These are my two options, no others. Done, right? I never have to worry about that rule ever again. I cannot fuck it up, right? Okay, sweet, that rule's done. Now I have the value of the third digit is less than the value of the fifth digit. So how does that work out? Well, in this world, I have 0, I have 3, and I have 4. So what are my options for this slot? 0 and 3. Can never be 4 because 4 would be the highest digit. I can never put 4 in this third spot. So I can either do 0 or 3 in this world. And so I'm going to split. When I have 3, I must have 4 here because it's the only digit remaining that's greater than. Over here, what do I have left? I have 0, 1, and 3. In this world, I can't have 3 here. I can only have 0 or 1. When it's 1, the only digit remaining that's higher is 3. And from here, I've incorporated all of the rules. All I have to do now is fill stuff in that remains. Low-hanging fruit. There's only 1 digit left, must be 0. Only 1 digit left, must be 0. Up here, it doesn't matter which one goes, 4th or 5th. I've obviated the rule. I've built it in. So what's left? I can do 3 or 4 in either order. Doesn't matter. And so we generally denote that kind of flip-flopping with like a little handlebar. It makes it like I don't have to further split it. It doesn't do more. It doesn't push the ball forward anymore, right? Over here, same thing. What do I have left? I have 1 and 3. Both of those would satisfy being higher than 0. And so again, the flip-flop, and I'm done. Now, that's it. That's all of the possible solutions for this entire game. I did it up front. I explained it as I did it. And how long did it take me? 4 minutes? 3 minutes? Right? Who here loves this? Yeah? I do, because it's going to answer the questions like that, right? Like, I've done all the possible work for this game in like 3 minutes, and now I'm off to the races on the questions. So from here, I just dive in, right? So turning to the questions themselves. And so I'm just going to answer this question from Sama. The question was, how do you know when it's a good time to set up worlds? And my response to that is when I turn to a new game that I've never seen before, I expect to make worlds before I read a single word. I expect to make worlds on every single logic game before I read something that goes, oh, well, it's too fungible. And there's only a few games in the entire LSAT. Like all of the LSATs combined, there's maybe 10 games that I don't make worlds on. Okay. I expect to make worlds every time because it's the best way of doing it. Yep. To answer your question, Holly, yeah, I'm looking for, so the two questions that I ask myself are, what must be true? And that's 1 and 2. 1 and 2 or 2 and 4. Then, do I see benefit from splitting based on what must be true? And in this instance, 1 and 2 and 2 and 4 are different. They cause different people to be in the 3rd slot or the 4th slot, right? And so there's benefit to splitting that. I want the ball to move forward by what I choose to split on. Here, for instance, I don't know that the ball necessarily moves forward. Okay. Just to crush, I think something that's that some people have been thinking or wondering about, is there a limit to how many you should make? My general response to that is, did you get the questions correct? That's not an answer, right? That's not an answer to how many is the right amount of worlds, because I don't think that there is a right answer. There is no such thing as too many worlds. I don't give a shit. I care about one thing and one thing only. Did you get paid for your work? Did you get the questions right? If you did 6 worlds and got the questions right, congratulations, you did that game correctly. If you did 10 worlds and you got the questions right, congratulations, you got that game correct. If you did 1 world and you baked everything into 1 world and got the questions correct, congratulations, you got the game correct. Okay, there's no right answer. I've done games where I made 12 worlds, 14 worlds. Am I upset? Maybe a little. I'm like, yeah, I probably could have done that better, but it's not wrong. I could have done it better. And I think there's a difference there. A great question, Abraham. Ibrahim said, hey, of those 10 worlds where you do not use worlds for, what's your reasoning for not using worlds? I think it's just because the game isn't set up for it in that instance. For those of you who are familiar with like the office selection game, where it's like, hey, these 4 people are going to choose one of these offices. You don't know what order they pick. You don't know which office they get. And so there's almost infinite amount of worlds in that, or infinite amount of solutions in that game. Where it's actually not really that viable. Yeah. That being said, that game, you can crush it. You have to make some realizations though. I'm gonna dive through the questions now, just to show people like, hey, I got everything I need right here. I got everything I need right here. I'm gonna blast through these questions and then we're gonna move on to an actual game that you all are going to spend some time doing, and then we'll come back as a group and work on with me doing the game as well. I'm not going to be talking about that type of game tonight, Eric. It's just we're covering worlds because worlds is 98% of the games, if not more. Okay, it's actually probably more, 97, 98%, whatever it is. And if you do worlds on 3 of the games and have 1 game in your section that is not awesome for worlds, you're still going to crush it. Worlds are the most efficient way on the vast majority. Okay, so looking at the questions. We got question 1. It says, if the last digit of an acceptable product code is 1, and I stop right there, what worlds am I possibly in if the last digit is 1? Well, not this one, because 1s are first, not this one, because 1 is the middle, only this world. What do you want to know? I literally know everything. It says it must be true that the first digit is 2, 4, 0, and the 3 has to go here. Any one of those would be correct. A, the first digit is 2. Yes. Now, I'm going to get rid of the wrong answers as well, because I want to know that for sure I got this answer correct. So, does it have to be true that 2 is the first one? Yes. But what about 0 being the second? No. What about the third digit is 3? No. What about the fourth digit is 4? No. What about the fourth digit is 0? No. And so the power of worlds is, I know all the information. I can say yes to the correct answer and no to the 4 incorrect ones for sure, 100%. I am 100% confident that 2 is the correct answer and all the other 4 are wrong. And that's how you kill it. That is how you mic drop on the logic games. So question 1 is A. Now, at the LSAT Demon, we typically do the if questions first, because it takes almost no time to go, oh, this question doesn't say if as the first world. Question 3. So the reason why we generally do that is because it gives you a smaller bite of the apple. It's like, oh, I only have to worry about 1 or 2 worlds. Awesome. You're going to get a better understanding of the game, even when you have killer worlds like this. So we generally say, do the if questions because it takes you no time and it's actually quite beneficial. Question 3 is the next if question. And so question 3 says, if the third digit acceptable product code is not 0. Okay, so I'm not in either of these worlds. I'm in one of these 2 worlds. Great. It says, which one of the following must be true? And I look at these 2 worlds, and the only thing that is the same in both of them is 0 is 4. And so I'm going to predict the answer and go looking for that, which is answer C. The second digit is 2 in this world, but not this one. The third digit is 3 in this world, but not this one. I've already said C is the answer. D says the 5th digit of the product code is 3 in this world, but not this one. The 5th digit of the product code is 1 in neither of them. And so again, I can predict it and go looking for it and be like, that's the answer. But I can also get rid of the other ones. If I just started off with being like, oh, the third digit is not 0. Okay, what could it be? Like, that makes no sense to me. This, I've already answered all the questions, no matter what questions they ask, because I built worlds in the first place. So question 3 is C. That's all of the if questions. So I go back now to question 2. It says, which one of the following must be true about any of the acceptable product codes? I can't really predict something necessarily here because it's a question about all 4 of my worlds potentially. So does the digit 1 have to appear in some position before digit 2? Nope. 1 is after digit 2 in these. B says the digit 1 appears at some position before digit 3. 1 could be after 3 in this world. The digit 2 appears in some position before digit 3. 2 is before 3, 2 is before 3, 2 is first in both of these 2, and so it for sure is before 3. That's the answer. Does digit 3 have to appear before digit 0? Before digit 0, it does in this world, but not this one. It's after. The digit 4 appears in some position before digit 3. This world, they flip-flop, and so no. Answer C is the only correct answer. Question 4 says, any of the following pairs could be the 3rd and 4th digits, respectively, of an acceptable product code. And like questions like this, I'm just like, how do you even answer this if you haven't made worlds? Like, do you have to test out every single one of them and see what happens? No, like with this, no. I have all of the options. So do I ever see 0, 1 as the third and fourth digits, 0, 1. Great. So that's not the answer because this is a acceptable product code except. I'm looking for something that doesn't exist. 0, 3, same world. 0, 3 works. What about 1, 0 right here? What about 3, 0 right here? What about 3, 4? No, 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 and no. And so E is our answer. It's the only one that doesn't work on that except question. Question 5 says, which one of the following must be true about any acceptable product code? So that must be true about all of these. It says there is exactly 1 digit between 0 and 1. So do I ever see 0 and 1 spaced more than right here? There's 2 in between, so that's not the answer. B says there's exactly 1 digit between 1 and 2. Well, they're next to each other in these 2 worlds, so no. C says there are at most 2 digits between 1 and 3. 2 digits between 1 and 3? Nope, 3 could be last, 1 could be first. That could be 3 in between. D says there are at most 2 digits between 2 and 3. 2 could be first, 3 could be last. It is in this one, and so no. E says there are at most 2 digits between 2 and 4. At most 2, at most 2. They're next to each other. And so at most 2 between the digits 2 and 4, that's the answer. And that's the game. That's the worlds. I didn't do any more work. None. And it's really easy on my brain. The power of worlds is walking into the test on test day and knowing that you're going to get the entire section of logic games correct. And then you're going to get to chill for a bit. Right? I took the test officially back when we were still doing them in person. And I cannot tell you how many people I made upset when in the middle of the logic game section for me, I finished in 25 minutes. I knew that I got them correct. And I asked to go use the restroom and bounced. I took a break. It was great. That's the mic drop, right? Okay. Before we go on to the game, I know I haven't been following the chat because yeah, flex on people via the logic games. That is 100% accurate. Flex. Before I go on, are there questions about this? And if you have questions and you want to speak, please raise your hand, just because I don't want it to get out of hand. Abe said, I see your hand, Esther. Abe said, do you recommend we always get rid of wrong answers? I know we shouldn't race the clock, but wouldn't it be faster to not get rid of wrong answers? I don't care about the clock. So that's not even part of my thinking. I want to get paid for my work. Sometimes I misread questions. And if I go, oh, A works, awesome, that's the answer. On that except question, I would have missed that. Because I wouldn't have realized that B also works and C also works, etc. Right? And so, yes, I recommend know what the right answer is and get rid of the wrong ones. Esther, you got a question?
Yeah, so my question is, some of the games, like the rules are complex and sometimes not easy to put into worlds. And like so when I take practice sections, sometimes I will actually like fill in the worlds when I'm doing the questions, because it's easier to do it when it's in the question versus in the beginning when I don't know how to orient what the game is supposed to look like.
Okay.
So how can I make that easier for myself in the beginning when the rules are like really not simple and difficult to follow? Okay, so I'm going to respond with 2 things. The first is that the questions are not your friends. Okay? They are the opposing counsel of the LSAT.
Do you get legal advice from the opposing counsel? No, that is malpractice. Just for like super clarity. I'm currently a student attorney. If I went up to the opposing counsel and was like, hey, can you help me set up my case? I will never be a barred attorney. Okay. I'm joking. I'm trying to make it like a joke, but that's also so true. The LSAT questions are not your friends, y'all. And that goes for reading comp, that goes for LR. Fuck that. Don't take their advice. Okay, that's the first sort of thing. The question answer choices are also not your friends. Be super critical of them. Expect them to be wrong because 4 out of 5 are, right? So don't try to justify an answer choice that sucks by being like, is this the one that helps me out? No, you need to be like, is this the one that sucks? Because here's why, okay? Now, the second point, sort of second answer to your question, Esther, is lawyers figure it out, okay? That's a challenge. And I'm not calling you out specifically, I'm calling everyone out. Lawyers are gladiators of the English language. For those of you who have listened to the podcast, that should sound familiar because Nathan Fox says it on the regular. Lawyers are gladiators of the English language. You got to figure that shit out, right? We are here to learn how to be future lawyers, and that starts with the LSAT. As a current 2L, I cannot tell you how helpful the LSAT was for my law school. The things you are learning right now as you study are essential to your law school. Logic games included. For those of you who are like, logic games, bleh, I will disabuse you of that notion right now. Logic games are practice at 2 things. 1, it's a practice of how hard you can work. Lawyers work their asses off. Lawyers show up for trial having done all 400 logic games. Okay? That's thing number 1 that the logic games do. The practical application of logic games is this is statutory interpretation. This is literally how statutes that you are going to analyze as a lawyer look. They are shaped the same way. They look the same way. They have if-then conditionals the same way. Get used to being a lawyer. How's that for an answer, Esther?
Good. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay. I play, like, at least in this circumstance, I'm trying to play like a little bit hard. I'm actually a nice guy, I promise. But like, I want to like challenge people. I want to put it out there that you can and should solve this. Okay. Yes, I'm going to play hard because I'm also going to celebrate hard when I crush it. That's the goal. Okay, so any other questions about this before we move into the first actual game? Sweet. Hearing nothing but crickets and my dog snoring softly. I'm going to I'm going to ask Jen or Kevin if you could drop the next game into the chat. I see a great question. Why not write down the rules? So while they're putting that in the chat, while you're thinking about this game, you might think to yourself, why not write down the rules? And there's a very strong reason as to why. The rules are already written down for you. They're right there. Do you need to write them down? No. That's actually a waste of time. And 2, for those of you who are concerned about time, it's a waste of time because you already have the rules there. And 2, the second one is you have the very large opportunity to fuck it up. What happens if you misinterpret a rule and then write it down incorrectly on your page? You've now built worlds or whatever based on your misinterpretation of the rule. That is a disaster. And then you realize it 3 questions in and you're like, oh shit, well, this is done. Got to start over. Yep. Yes. People are saying, yep, I've done that. Me too. I just want to like validate that feeling. I have done that too. And so I try not to write down the rules as much as possible. Okay. Yes. Yes, absolutely. That is a great question or a great quote from Ben. I choose the correct answer because the test tells me everything I need to know. Ben Olson. Okay. So once again, Jen or Kevin, if you don't mind dropping it into the chat, we're going to spend some time on the second, on this first game for you all, the second game that we're on tonight. Jen has put it helpfully in the chat. Thank you so much, Ms. Jen. Please keep sending your questions in the chat. You can also DM Jen, you can DM Kevin. It is 7:36. I'm going to give you all a lot of time. I expect you to actually use it, okay? I'm not trying to challenge anyone to go through and be like, oh, I'm a world's master, got it in 5 minutes, killed the game. I want you to explore this new thing that I have demonstrated. To Esther's awesome question, and thank you again, Esther, for asking that question. I want to give you the opportunity to get it right. Take the time to figure it out, okay? So it's 7:36. I'm going to give everybody like around 13 or 14 minutes. In that time, I expect you to read and understand the rules. Low bar. Read and understand the rules. After that, begin making worlds. That's it. Now, if you get further than that, fucking great. You complete your worlds, even better. Yay. That's not my test. I want you to think about it. Sit there and ponder for a minute about where you're going to split, because where you split and why is like the first question and the most important one, I think, in order to be successful, right? You need to have a reason. I'm going to split based on that. Think about it is what I'm challenging you to do. Don't just do it on gut. Okay. So it's 7:37 now. I will see everybody in about 13, 14 minutes. So around 7:50. Good luck. Don't rush. Just work. Okay. See you in a minute. We're gonna get started again in a few minutes. How are people doing? See some smiles. We'll get started in a few minutes. I promise all will become clear. Okay, we're gonna get started again in about 1 minute, y'all. 1 minute. Okay, welcome back, y'all. Welcome back. We're gonna get started with test 65, game 3. And so just before we dive in, how do we feel? I like to do check-ins because I feel like that's important. I definitely got some like not great. I turned it up, right? I made this one a little bit more difficult. Yeah, that's on purpose, y'all, because I want you to see how easy this game can be. It's a series of baby steps, and that's okay. It takes time. There was a little bit of a conversation in the chat that was going on. When I first started my LSAT studies, I think my cold diagnostic, I got like 8 or 9 questions right on the logic games. Okay. Then I discovered Nathan Fox, and thank God for it, because after figuring out like what this was, he was like, oh, worlds. And I was like, oh my God, mind blown the first time I saw it. And I was like, that makes so much sense, but I am not good at it yet. And so what did I do? I spent like 3 weeks working on logic games every single day. Even like that doesn't mean I neglected my other stuff. I was still studying the other stuff. And just for super clarity, I was working 2 full-time jobs at the time, like 80 hours a week. Typically, I still found time to study. So for any of you who are like, I don't got time, if you don't got time, it's not the right time to study for the LSAT, and then it's not the right time to go to law school. Just for like that talking point. if I can find an hour, you can find an hour. So I studied the logic games for like 3-4 weeks, forcing myself to do worlds, even when I didn't want to, because it felt weird. I was like, this doesn't click yet. And then it did. And ever since then, I was like perfect on 3 games. And then I started to get a little bit more efficient on game 1, 2, and 3. And that's how I leapt to game 4. Perfect, knowing it. Okay. It takes time. It takes practice. The LSAT is not a test that you just show up on. For the vast majority of people, it's not just a test you show up on and you're like, oh, I killed it. Like that's not a thing for the vast majority of people. Now, if you're a computer programmer, like if you went to like computer science for undergrad, probably going to kill the LSAT. Like there is a strong correlation there. Because it's like, put in the data, output the result. That is the LSAT in general. So for those of you who are like, but I went to poli-sci, well, I hate to tell you this, that's whatever. I'm a theater major. It did not help. Liberal arts is wonderful. I strongly recommend it. But the people who kill it out of the gate are like computer scientists. So whatevs. Anyway, let's do this game. Here we go. I'm going to start this. Here we go. So we got test 65, game 3. We have the organizer of a luncheon will select exactly 5 foods to be served from among exactly 8 foods. Okay, we got desserts, F and G, 3 main courses, N, O, and P, and 3 side dishes, T, V, and W. And we're going to take 5 of them. Now, I'm just going to be super clear in this moment in that this is what people tend to call an in-out game. It's like, I have more things than I'm going to take. Right? I got 8 foods. I'm only going to select 5 of them. This is a somewhat common type of game. And at the LSAT Demon, we generally don't give a shit about game types. It's like there's ordering, there's grouping. Sometimes they do the both. Sometimes they do neither. This is just a grouping game. I have an in group and an out group. Okay. Now, Ricky spoiled it. I am kind of like the disciple of this way to do 2 group games called Circle Slash. And it's just an organizational tool. There's nothing correct about it versus incorrect elsewhere. It's just a way to organize that makes a lot of sense in my brain. And I hope it does in yours as well. The first time I saw this was Nathan Fox, and my brain exploded. I was like, that is awesome. And then I was like, off to the races. I'm going to take that and do everything that way that can, because it just makes so much logical sense in my brain. Okay. So the important thing to realize after that paragraph is, hey, we got these things, and I'm not done reading the paragraph yet because F, N, and T are hot foods. Don't want to forget that. It's important. Now, yeah, just to be super clear for Liz, is that for Alicia? Game types don't matter because every single game is unique. Every single one. Okay? There's no correct way to do any particular game. And so like this over under or overbooked, like I don't even know what half that shit means. I've never heard of a lot of this ways out there. I care about, do I put stuff in order? Do I put stuff in groups? Do I do both at the same time? That's realistically the only thing that we care about. So I got 5 things up here, or sorry, 8 things up here, and I'm only going to take 5 of them. A very important thing to think about with in-out games is filling up the out group. There's 2 ways that I can conquer knowing who's going to be in. I can say, oh, these 5 people are in, or 3 people are out. Therefore, everyone is in. Okay. If you've never thought about that before on in-out games, strongly want to recommend it. I have 3 out slots. That's it. So now we got the rules. At least one dessert, at least one main course, and at least one side dish must be selected. Dessert, main, side. Never going to fuck that rule up again. Built it in. At least one hot food must be selected. We'll come back to that because I'm like, okay, one of F, N, and T. Okay, which one? I don't care. Could I have more than one? Yep. It says at least one. Then it says if either P or W is selected, both must be selected. Mutually exclusive. I either have both of them or I have neither of them. And to my point about the out group matters, I either have P and W, which satisfies a meal and a side, or I don't, which means that I've satisfied 2 out of my 3 out slots. And so for the person who asked earlier, does the PW rule even matter? Yes, it matters a fuck ton. I want to start with the biggest assholes. P and W are huge assholes here. They're really constricted. They're either both going or neither. And so that's actually where I'm going to start. But I'm going to read the rest of the rules first. I've just done this game before, and so I know I'm going to start there. Then it says, if G is selected, O must be selected. If N is selected, V cannot be selected. And that's another reason why the PW rule really matters. Because if you think for a second about PW both being out, and then you also think about the fact that one of N or V must always be out because they don't like each other. I've now filled the out group in my PW out world, and everyone must also then be in. Okay? So I'm going to start with either P and W are both in or P and W are both out. And I'm going to give myself a bunch of space because I want a whole bunch of room in order to split. I'd rather have too much space and not need it than to be like, oh, I'm going to put them right next to each other and then drawing lines about what means what. Organization is so key on the logic games. And that takes a little bit of time to get used to and practice. But organization is so important because you might have all the correct answers, but if you don't know where they are, if you can't find them, what does it matter? Okay. So I'm going to split, and I'm going to split it down deep. TVW, hot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. DMS. And I either have PW, meal, side, or I don't. And I've now built in that rule in its entirety. I either got it or I don't, right? It's like a light switch, on, off. Rules done. Never have to worry about it again. Okay, now what? I think about if G is selected, O must be selected, or N is selected, V cannot be selected. Well, in this world, I know that one of N or V must be out. One of them must be. I cannot have both of them. And so down here, I know I got F and G. F is hot. G is a dessert. I know that I got O. O is a meal. I know that I got T and V. T, or sorry, not T and V. I have T. T is also a hot food. And then either I have N or V because, again, I have to fill this last slot. Everyone else is out. So N or V goes there. Doesn't matter which one. I don't care. Just who cares? Like, what does it matter? I have either a meal or a side left, and I'm done with this world in its entirety just by thinking about the PW rule in combination with the NV. Up here, I'm like, okay, wait a second. Does the NV rule do a whole lot? Maybe not yet. So I'm going to think about that for a second and go back to the G rule. I either have G or I don't, right? Okay. So I'm going to split. It's super important. I don't do anything until I make an exact copy of my split. I don't want to fuck that up by adding something here and then being like, okay, wait a second, where did I split from? I split first, then I add. I either have G or I don't. On off switch. G is a dessert. G is out. Now, what happens when I have G? Must have O. That's a meal. Okay. What happens when I don't have G? Does anything happen to O? Do I give a shit? Nope. If, for instance, you're like, oh, G is out, therefore O is out, you've mistaken sufficient for necessary. Okay. G and O are only tied together if G is in. And so for those of you out there that are like, but wait a second, the contrapositive, we don't even teach that at the LSAT Demon because it's a made up bullshit LSAT thing that honestly is more confusing than it's worth. You either have G, therefore the rule applies, or I don't have G and I don't care where O is. Okay. Don't care. Could be in, could be out. Who knows? But I saw someone say it when G is out. They are correct. I must have F because I have to have a dessert. And there's only one left. Okay. So now I've accomplished the G rule. I never have to think about it again. Great. Now what? Well, in this world, I cannot have both N or I can't have both of N and V. Okay, that's fine. But I also realized like, hey, hold on a second. I only got one spot left. Only got one left. What have I not done yet? Haven't taken a hot food. Have to take a hot food. Thank you, Carlos. Yeah, I have to take one of F, N, or T. Does it matter which one I take? No, because I've satisfied all the other rules. So I have one of F, N, or T. That's my hot food. That's either a D, an M, or an S. And then everyone else is out. So who has to go out for sure? Oops, I just circled that. That's not what I meant to do. V is out. No way that he can be in because he can't satisfy the hot food rule. So must be out. There's only one slot left. Yeah, all your homies hate contrapositives. That's because they don't make any sense. I shouldn't say that. They make perfect sense. They don't make sense to focus on contrapositives. It doesn't teach you anything useful. And if anything, you've forgotten one of the options. I can circle back to that in a minute, but I'll show people the rest of this game first. So this world is now done. This world is now done. What do I have left? Well, I've satisfied the hot food rule here. So I don't have to worry about that. I've satisfied the DMS rule here. Don't have to worry about that. I've satisfied the PW rule. Don't have to worry about that. G is not selected. So I don't care about that. N and V. That's it. That's the only thing I have to worry about now. And so what you can do with this, if you want to, is you can split it one more time. I either have one of N and V or I don't. If you want to get rid of the rule. Right? Because those are my options. I either have one of them, therefore the other one's out, or I have neither. And so F, H, G, N, H, O, P, T, H, V, W. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. G is out. So, right? I'm just going to check it off again. I got the DMS. Great. I got a hot food in F. Great. P and W are selected. Both must be selected. they're in. G, if G is in, don't care. G's out. The only rule I haven't completed in this world is N. If N is selected, V cannot be selected. And so either I have one of them, therefore not the other. And you can do it that way, or you can do it, I don't know why I keep using my fingers. Or you can be like, hey, NV, one of them's in, one of them's out. Or both of them are out. Okay. In this world, what do I have left? O and T. In this world, what do I have left? O and T. And that's the game. 4 worlds, done. Everything's baked in. Crushes it. Right? I'm going to just finish like the little stuff I have here. So O and T are a meal or a side. N and V are a meal and a side. O is a meal. T is a side. Done. Okay. How long should it take? Should it normally take to set up worlds? My question is how many? My response to that is, did you get the questions right? Again, like I'm not concerned about time. I'm concerned about efficiency. For me, I could set this up in about 3 minutes. For you, if you're new to worlds, if it takes you 20, I don't give a shit. If it takes you 45 minutes and you get to this, good job. Okay. Because if you take 45 minutes now, tomorrow you might take 40. And then the week after you might take 30. And then the week after you take 20. And then you are off to the races to not paying for law school. The gateway drug to not paying for law school is perfect on the logic games. Okay. Any questions before I dive into the actual questions on this game? For those of you who saw Circle Slash for the first time, what do you think? Organizational tool. So Rachel says, can you start the game with a different rule other than PW and end as efficiently as you just did? I mean, you can start with whatever rule and you will end up back at the same ultimate solutions. I don't know if it'll be as efficient, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. Okay. I want it, like one of the things that I say all the time with my, with my classes is, there's no right or wrong way. There's better and worse. It's a relative thing. More efficient, less efficient. If you actually understand the rules and bake them in, you could have started with the NV rule. You're like, okay, I either have N or I don't have V. I have V, I don't have N, I don't have either. Right? So just to sort of walk through this one more time, I'm going to walk through the splits. We either have PW, both in, or we have neither, both out. In this world, I must also have N or V out because they have that last rule. One of them got to be out. Therefore, everyone else is in. In the rest of my worlds, I started with G. G is in or G is out. Bakes in that rule. And then in these two, where G is out, I either have one of N and V or I have neither of them because I can't have both. And so we sort of like the thing that I love about Circle Slash is that it's so organized. PW and G, PW and not G, PW and not G and not NV. No PW. Yep. For those of you who are asking, you're sort of like asking about the reasons to start in particular places. I start typically with the biggest asshole. And again, that is stolen lovingly from Nathan Fox, Who is the most restricted? Who is the easiest to deal with? Who drives the action? If you, for instance, have the variable G mentioned in 3 different rules as the sufficient condition, if you start with anything else, I'm like, why are you fighting the hypo? Right? For those of you who are familiar with your future law school, fighting the hypo is bad. Right? Your professor is going to be like, well, what about the law here? And you're like, oh, those facts aren't the case. That's fighting the hypo. Don't do that. You have everything you need. Okay. Okay. So Leka said, on most logic games, I can visualize the first question and get the correct answer based on the rules. That is true. If there's a list question, it's like, hey, which one of the following is a potential accurate thing? Do that first. Forget about your beautiful worlds. Do that first. Go through it, process of elimination. And then you go, oh, hold on a second. I'm going to find it in my worlds. Confidence booster. Off to the races with the rest of the questions. Yep. So Carlos, just for clarity, I'm going to find the list question in my worlds, because worlds is all the answers, not just some of them. Okay. I have all the options. Okay. So starting with the questions now. It says, which one of the following is a list of foods that could be the foods selected? So I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, because I want to keep track. I don't have, like, I can't check them off up here. I want to keep track of which ones violate things. And so I know that I have to have PW. That was the rule, right? I either have both of them or neither of them. And so it's, do I see a world where there's one and not, or an answer where there's one and not the other? Yeah, that's D. D is out because it only has P. G, therefore O. And I'm like, where do I see G but not O? Answer C. I don't care about O being solo. I care about G being solo. That doesn't work. Last rule, N and V can't both be selected at the same time. And I'm like, okay, where do I have both of them at the same time? A. And now I'm down to just B and E. And I did that in a particular order because those are the easiest ways to do that. I'm like, that's the easiest thing to visualize. Do you think like picking out dessert, main course, side is easier or harder? You don't have to go in order. Go in order of ease, right? You don't have to go in the order they presented to you. So what are the rules I have left? At least one hot food and one dessert, one main, one side. I'm going to look for the hot food because that's F, N, or T. So I have to have one of F, N, or T. Does E have that? No, because I already saw B has F. So E is out. B is the only answer that survived, but I still have to check. One dessert, one main, one side. I got F. Great. Dessert. I got O. That's a main. And I have W. I also have T. So that's a side. So I've checked that off. Now I take, this is one of the things that I do, and it's a confidence booster for me. I go, okay, FOPTW. Where is that in my worlds? I want to find it because it takes me 5 seconds to do this in real life, but it's a huge confidence booster of like, oh, that's this world. Done, right? And so where is FOPTW? Well, it's in my PW is in world, which is up the top 3, but it's in my G out world because I didn't mention G. So it's in one of these 2. And so I either have one of N and V or I don't. When I don't have either of N or V, I must have FPWOT. And that's exactly what that says. And so I told the LSAT what it must be. And that's the answer. And it gives me a confidence boost. FOPTW. Done. B. And I'm off to the races on the rest of the things. Treasure asks, will you always end with complete worlds? No. Will I always end with everything filled out perfectly? No, because it's not possible all the time. I will end with all of the rules baked in. There's a difference, okay? Sometimes, rare exceptions, I might have a rule that I have to keep in my head because I can't actually bake it in. Very rare. I might have open parts in my worlds. I might have flexibility in my worlds, but I will have all the rules that I can bake in, and that's almost always all of them. So question 12, that's B. Question 14 is the first if question, and so I'm skipping 13. Question 14 says, if O is the only main course selected, and so I'm like, that's possible, and nope, it's not. P is, wait, P is a main. I'm only in this world. Awesome. What do you want to know? I know everything. Which one of the following cannot be selected? PW cannot be selected, and then one of NV. Which one of those is the answer? Answer E. It's the only one that makes sense. F is in, G is in, T is in, V could be in, W for sure out. I can predict that answer. It's either PW, and that's the answer, E. Question 15 says, if F is not selected, well, F is selected, F is selected, F is selected. The only place that F cannot be selected is this top world. It's the only place where it has the option of being out. Okay, which one of the following could be true? I bet you they're going to ask about N or T being in, because there's the flexibility. They tend not to ask about the things set in stone on could be truths. They can, but they tend not to. So I'm like, well, okay, if F is out, then I know N or T is likely the one that is selected. So we'll see. P is the only main selected. Nope, O is also selected in this world. T is the only side selected. Nope, W is selected. Exactly 2 hot foods are selected. Nope, only one, my hot food slot. Exactly 3 main courses are selected. Main, N, also a main. Could have exactly 3 courses, and that's the answer. E says exactly 3 side dishes are selected. Side, potential for a second side, can't get to 3. So the only one that could be true is D, but it doesn't have to be true. So like that's the flexibility. Doesn't have to be, could be true. Question 15 is D. Question 16 says, if T and V are the only side dishes selected. Okay, so only sides selected, T and V. W is in, W is in, W is in. Only here. And that means V is selected. And so I know literally everything. Okay, which one of the following is a pair of foods, each of which must be selected? So I'm like, some combination of F, O, and G are going to be the answer. Like that's what it has to be. A says F and G, that's the answer. F and N, nope, if V's in, N's out. F and P is out. N and O, N is out if V is selected. O and P is out. Kills it. Going back to the non-if questions, question 12 says, which one of the following is a list of foods that, oh, sorry, that's the list question. Geez, Louise. Question 13, pardon me. Which one of the following is a pair of foods of which the organizer of the luncheon must select at least one? Okay, so can I have both of these people out at the same time? If I answer yes, it's not the right answer. If I answer no, like if I have to have one of them, that's the answer, okay? So F and T, can I have both F and T out at the same time? In the first world, I take N, F and T are out. Can I have G and O out at the same time? Sorry, which one of the following is a pair of foods of which the organizer of the luncheon must select at least one? Do I have, can I have G and O out at the same time? In this world, and I just realized I never wrote down the other OT. Because there's an NV out, but what's the other out slot? The OT. So I could actually have G and O out at the same time. N and T. Can I have both N and T out? Same world. N and T can be out. What about D? Can I have both O and P out at the same time? Well, P is in the top three worlds, and O is in the bottom. So I never have a world with both of those out at the same time. Can I ever have V and W out at the same time? Bottom world. There's a really good lesson to walk away with from this particular question. And that is, if I have one out slot left and I have a necessary condition, for those of you who know what that means, O in this game is a necessary condition. You can't have it out and have G in. It's necessary for G to be in, right? If you have one out slot and you have a necessary condition and a sufficient condition left, the necessary has to go. There's no way around that. And so I might just illustrate this here. I got one slot. I got G and O. O has to go. No way, like no way around that. If O doesn't go, I also take G, and then who goes there? Have to fill it somehow. If I have two slots left and I got three variables, G, O, and T, O has to go. I cannot lose O because then I also lose G, and then I only have one slot filled. Let me continue on. I got four slots. I got five variables. Can I lose O? Nope. Must take O. 5 slots, 6 variables. Can I lose O? I cannot. Gotcha. I've never done that before. I've never spelled that out. It just happened to go with this game. It's a rule. Okay. 13 was D. I can never have both O and P out, Kenza. Look, I have P in, I have P in, I have P in. So I've satisfied P like being in 3 of them. I don't give a shit about O. I only have to, I'm trying to look for both of them being out at the same time. So if I have one of them in, doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about the other one. Here I have O in. I have one of them in all 4 of them. There's no way to get both of those out at the same time. So the answer is D. Okay, so Chelsea, sorry, can I explain my trick with necessary? It's not a trick, it's just a fact. If you have one more variable, then you have slots. And you have a necessary condition. The necessary condition must go because otherwise you lose 2 variables or more. And that's the game. I didn't realize. That's the last question. Kills it. 4 worlds. Any questions about this? It is a grouping game, Carlos. In, out. It is not an ordering game. They're not asking you to put stuff in order.
I had a question. Why did you skip the second question in both games?
I only skipped it because it was not an if question. I do the if questions first because they're smaller bites at the apple. That's just a thing that we do because it doesn't take any time to go, oh, the first word doesn't say if. Great. On to the next question. And I go, okay, great. With if questions, they're giving me something that must work. And it's a smaller bite at the apple. Okay. Ifra. Ifra, you got a question? You are muted if you are. Sharonique.
Hi, so I was looking at the worlds. And I have a question for number 16. I'm not sure why it's F and N and not F and G.
Okay.
So I got all of them right, but
16?
I was
Okay.
close.
So I'll do 16 one more time, and then we're going to move on to the last game. 16 says, if T and V are the only side dishes selected, and so I stop right there. If T and V are the only side dishes selected, W is a side, and W is in my top 3 worlds, and so I cannot be in any of those worlds. I have to be in this world, and N has to be out. So it has to be T and V, because that's what the question says. Which one of the following is a pair of foods, each of which must be selected? Well, who are the other 3? F, O, and G. And so any combination of those. So F and G is the first answer. Those both must be in. That's the answer. B says F and N. No, N is out if V is in. F and P is out always in this world. N and O, N is out because V is in this world. And then last, O and P is out. And so that's why A is the answer. Does that answer your question, Sharni?
Perfect. Thank you.
That's the power of worlds, y'all, just for clarity, right? Like if that doesn't illustrate it, I said yes to the right answer and no to all 4 in what, 15 seconds while speaking about it? That's where the money is. That's not paying for law school. Okay. Okay, I want to give people time to work on this last game and then also go through it. And I'm going to go through the last game a little bit faster just because of time. It's already 8:28. Jen or Kevin, if you don't mind dropping in the last thing. Same thing, okay? Same thing, y'all. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes this time to work on the worlds only. And then I'm going to go through the worlds and the questions. So take your time, 10 minutes, it's 6:28. I'll see everybody about 6:38. If you have questions, of course, keep them coming, DM them to us, put them in the chat. We will do our best to answer them during this time. Good luck. About 1 more minute, y'all. 1 more minute. Okay, y'all. It's 6:38. For the sake of time, I want to work through this setup, and then if we get to the questions, we get to the questions or not. But I just want to answer sort of like a few thoughts before I dive in. So there was some like sentiment of like, hey, I don't love this game, or I don't love the logic games. And I just kind of want to like get real for a second. I didn't love them either. I did not. I didn't love most of the LSAT. I was like, this is struggling. This is me beating my head against the wall. This is me being frustrated because I am typically, I'm not trying to brag here, but I feel like a lot of people in this Zoom are used to being the smartest person in a conversation or the smartest person in the room, because people that want to go to law school are typically people that are intelligent. They're typically at the top of the class in undergrad. And guess what? Now you're going to be surrounded by a bunch of other people that are the exact same. That is law school. You're surrounded by a bunch of people who are really good at getting good grades, right? If you don't love the LSAT yet, that is fine. That is fine. If at the end of your LSAT studies, you don't love the LSAT, I want to strongly question whether law school is the right choice for you. If you don't love reading comp as a, oh my gosh, I get to learn something fun and new about moss on boulders being used to determine whether earthquakes happen or not. And for those of you who recognize that passage, that is often on people's like list of like, what the fuck passages, right? If you can't at some point enjoy that for what it is, how are you possibly going to enjoy a 60-page Supreme Court justice opinion about the sale of eel skins from the 1700s? That's the study of law. It is dry. It is boring. Who here knows anything about maritime law? Show of hands. Anyone? Little bit? Okay, a couple of hands. Congratulations. You are in by far the minority. Maritime law is a thing you might have to know about. And if you don't, because your client comes to you, you got to figure it out. You have to read a bunch of dusty tomes about maritime law, going back to like British Commonwealth, British common law times from like the 1500s. That is what being a lawyer is. And so you don't have to like or love the LSAT now. But if you never like or love it, this is the beginnings of law for you. Think long and hard before you sign on the line, especially if you're taking loans. Oh my God, don't do that in the first place. Don't go to law school is the first thing that Ben and Nathan say. If you must go to law school, go for free. I love it. I fucking love law school, even on the days that I hate it. I love it. I would not pay $5 for it. Okay. Okay. Yes, we're going for fucking free. Buy a house instead. Like that's the thing. Buy a house instead. Buy a baller apartment instead. Though if you go to school in New York City, you might be able to buy like a postage stamp. I lived there for a long time. It is crazy. Okay, so let's do this. Here we go. So this is 73 game 3. Yeah, see also Bay Area. That is 100% true. So 73 game 3. We got during the 17th century, 3 families, the Trents, the Williamsons, and the Yandles, owned 5 buildings that constituted the center of their village: the forge, the granary, the inn, the mill, and the stables. Cool. Okay. Each family owned at least one of the buildings. Okay, so I got to put one of these things in at least, like every person has something. That's what that rule says. Great. And for those of you who skim the paragraph, stop fucking skimming everything. You must read and understand. There's really important shit in the paragraph. Okay, so each family owned at least one of the buildings, and each building was owned by exactly one. Okay, great. The historical evidence establishes the following about the ownership of the buildings. Great. The Williamsons owned more of the buildings than the Yandles owned. Williamson's got to have at least 2. No way around that. I got 1 floater. Where can that floater go? I think in my head, well, it can't go at Yandles, so it can either go at T or W. Am I going to split on that? Maybe, well, for sure. But am I going to split on that first? Maybe not. I don't know. Neither the inn nor the mill belong to the owner of the forge. Okay, inn, mill, don't like the forge. Great. Now, I have a prohibition against writing down the rules, right? It's a general prohibition. It can be broken. If you don't fuck it up, you don't fuck it up. I'm going to write it down here because I'm going to have my back to the rules. I'm going to be looking at my board. The rules are behind me. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. So neither the inn nor the mill, see, inn or mill don't belong to the forge. Great. Then either the Trents owned the stables or the Yandle owned the inn, or both. Great. So I'm back to that first rule. I'm going to get rid of that first rule first. Distribution is often a way to start because it tends to be tricky and it tends to solve a lot of questions. So either the second one goes to T or the third one goes to W. And so I'm going to split based on that first. So either T has a second or W has a third. Those are my only options for that rule. And now I'm done with it. I never have to think about it again. Am I going to do the negative rule next? Fuck no. I'm going to do the positive rule that tells me something must happen, not something doesn't happen. I want to start with the things that push the game forward, not the things that say don't do that, as a general thing. So either the Trents own the stables or the Yandles own the inn, or both. And that's 3 options. And I'm going to do that in both of my worlds. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, T, W, Y. I'm actually going to make this a little bit more tidy. Sorry. 1, 2, 1, 2, T, W, Y. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, T, W, Y. Over here. 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. 1. Okay, watch how this is no thought at all. Either the Trents own the stables, the Yandles own the inn, or both. Stables, inn, or both. Done with that rule. Don't have to think about it ever again. Right? Now, there's some low-hanging fruit here. In this world, if the Yandles don't own the inn, we know that W does. In this one, if the Trents don't own the stable, W does. In this one, if the Trents don't own the stables, W does. In this world, I can still go in 2 places. And so I'm actually going to get rid of that entirely. I'm going to go, oh, okay, this world, I'm going to split it one more time. Either I is at T or I is at W. Right? Can't go at Y. Therefore, either T or W. Great. I'm now done with that rule. And I'm so going to crush this game because now all I have to worry about is this. I and M can't go with F. Well, what does that do in this world? Well, I's placed. I don't have to worry about that. But M and F can't go together. Okay, I'm going to just make them apart. And then that forces G. In this world, I'm going to come back to it because it's a little bit harder. There's some flexibility there. I want to do the low-hanging fruit first. This world, I is away from M and F. But I got to separate M and F. Therefore, the granary gets locked in. I have to separate M and F. Therefore, the granary gets locked in. Do you see how I'm literally just doing the same shit over and over and over again? I'm not thinking about it at all. I'm just like, oh, these got to be separated, done. These got to be separated, done. These got to be separated. Okay, what about over here? Well, I cannot go with F. Therefore, F must go to Y. Now I just go M and G. I's already taken care of. M and F have to be separated. Therefore, G. This world dies. Oh, did I fuck up the Trents, Williamsons, and the Yandles? Did I do something wrong? This world dies. What's up?
Hey, would you be able to please review the third rule? So I am fine with everything but the last or both part. Like that's what's throwing me off because to me, when I'm reading that, I'm taking that as the Yandles own both of them instead of splitting them.
Okay. So it says either they did this or both, right? Either they did this thing or they did both. So either the Trents have the stables. That's option one, right? Like break that sentence down. Either the Trents own the stables. That's option one. Or the Yandles owned the inn. Option two. Or both happened at the same time.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Last but not least, I'm going to deal with this rule. Where can F go? It can't go at T, or sorry, it can't go at W, so it must go at T or Y. Okay, I'm like, I don't necessarily need to split that, right? But I can also just get rid of everything if I do. So either F is at T or F is at Y, and then M and G flip-flop. M and G flip-flop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 worlds. Done. Esther, you got a question?
Yeah, so my question is, and I think I know this, I just want to clarify, in the worlds where W has 3, why can't Y have 2?
Because there aren't enough variables then.
Oh, each one has to have 1. Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes, right? So perfect example of the passage, like the paragraph having a really important preamble rule. Some, like if it didn't say everyone must have a thing, everyone must own at least one building, then that would be a possibility. I could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and nothing at this, right? Okay, that would be another option, but it says everyone must own at least one building. And so this distribution isn't viable. Okay?
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions about this game, about the setup here? Okay, cool. So I'm going to let you all go and do the questions on your own. We've been through a journey. I want to open the floor to the idea of asking questions. We're not going to stick around for too long because I've been teaching since 6. I have a full day of law school tomorrow. I worked with a client for 6 hours today. And so I can certainly answer some questions. I'm not going to speak for Jen and Kevin for how long they can stay past 9, but I want to open the floor to the idea of asking questions, because we can only help you if you ask. And so please feel free to ask. And to make that more comfortable, I'm going to turn off the recording.